This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And just like you were back for the Primetime Podcast, you're back now for our annual baseball segment, or our weekly
Our annual
baseball segment.
Our
Well, it
annual
is.
baseball segment.
Well, you could say that, right? If it's weekly, it's annual, right? Would that count?
No.
Okay. Yeah, weekly baseball segment. That's what I meant to say. And today, we're talking a little Manny Machado. And before I get into everything, little housekeeping here at the beginning. Number one, patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast is where you can help support us. Stored down below in the description where you can get yourself an MVP t-shirt. And mostvaluablepodcast.com. I keep wanting to say MVP.com, but as Mark found out, that will direct you to CBS Sports and don't want to direct you there. Mostvaluablepodcast.com. That's where you'll catch everything for MVP each and every day. And last but not least, go on to Apple Podcasts and iTunes and give all the MVP podcasts a 5-star rating. Like I said, we're looking at Manny Machado today, Brandon. And the question I want to ask you, I'm just going to come right out of the gates and ask it. Which teams, or for you, which team that you want to start with, should trade for Manny Machado?
Well, I think that we should look at this team first because they're the hottest name out there in terms of team. I disagree in the fact that they should trade for Manny Machado, but they're most likely going to make a push. That would be the
push. You want to piss me off to start the podcast?
That would be the
you?
Chicago Cubs.
Yep, knew you were going to say it.
That would be the Chicago Cubs. We have to talk about the Cubs first because that's the team that the rumors for Manny Machado have been floating since before the season started. But since before the end of March when the season started, they've been floating around there. I mean, the White Sox name was thrown out there. Kind of funny, but even their name was thrown out there. But for the Chicago Cubs, which one, you'd be going after a guy who currently is batting at .335 with 15 homers and 43 RBIs. That's freaking awesome. It's freaking awesome. But with rumors swirling that the Cubs would deal Addison Russell to Baltimore to get Manny Machado. But let me tell you, Baltimore is not good, if you didn't know. If they only brought back Addison Russell for Manny Machado, they're idiots. You have to give up Russell. You have to give up probably 2 or possibly 3 more prospects. Why would you do that to yourselves if you're the Chicago Cubs? Addison Russell is good.
The thing I want to throw out here is, and this is from USA Today, their proposal for the Cubs is Addison Russell and then our minor league pitcher, Brandon Little. That's it. Just those 2 players. One minor league pitcher who's a left-handed pitcher, and then Addison Russell.
That is not enough. If I'm Baltimore, that's not enough. You have one of the best shortstops in the game, one of the best players in the game. You're not giving up for just Addison Russell and a minor league pitcher. I don't know anything about that minor league pitcher, but you don't do that. You've got to get a haul if you're Baltimore.
Well, and that's the thing. You said it. You got to get a haul. And for me, I feel like at this point in the season, like, of course, we're not going to see a trade until the trade deadline. But for Baltimore, I almost feel like you've got to right now ask for the moon. Ask for the moon and hope you get a king's ransom for Manny Machado, because the closer we get to the trade deadline, it's basically going to be, do we get anything for him, or do we just keep him and let him walk? Because I feel like the Orioles need to trade Manny Machado by the trade deadline, because if you don't trade him by the trade deadline, you're getting nothing for him. You have to get something for him, because in my mind, he's gone at the end of the year. He's going somewhere else. Yes. Someone's going to pay him big bucks out of that non-cap room wallet they can pull out.
You're right. And here's the whole thing. Why, if you're the Chicago Cubs, why are you going to just get Manny Machado for this season, most likely just being a rental? You know LA's going to come and outbid you at the end of the season, or Boston, or anyone else, most likely. Yeah. I mean, that is a rental for you.
Yeah.
For the Cubs, does it make sense in terms of, if you look at it from the perspective of, would this help us get to the World Series? But that's it. And yes, I know at the end of the day, that's what you're wanting to do. But how does that set you up for the future? Do you really need to do that? Do you really need to? That's the whole thing. And I don't want to say that, you don't want to say, no. You want to say, and a lot of Cubs fans probably do, we want to bring in Manny Machado. We want to bring in Machado. We want to see him come in, play well, see another stud on our team that's already filled with a number of other studs. We want to get back to another World Series. We want to win another one. 2016 seems so long ago now. And Ricky, I'm talking to a Cub fan and you. I mean, I want to know more of your thoughts, because I think it's a little ridiculous if you would go out and you would try and get Manny Machado, because there's no way that you're just going to give up Addison Russell and one prospect. I don't see that happening.
If that was the trade, if it was just for the sake of argument, and we were giving up just Addison Russell and one minor league player, even if it was little, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
Because the way I would look at that is, Machado's 1 year older than Addison Russell, but really, in the long run, Manny Machado might be better long term than Addison Russell. Do I see that being the case? No. And the thing I feel like with this Cub team that I don't want to see is, back in 2016, we were in, and Juice, if you're watching this, I want to know what you think also, Juice. I know you're watching. And I feel like in 2016, we were kind of in a bind. Never won a World Series in 100 years. Laughing stock of Chicago, the butt of everyone's jokes. We needed to be a little desperate. We needed to be desperate to say, all right, we got all these prospects. Let's fucking unload. Let's go get Montgomery. Let's go get Chapman, which right now, to be honest, before we recorded the Primetime podcast before this, I saw Torres' name, Gleyber Torres. And I did a double take because I'm like, didn't he used to be ours? And you went, yeah, he used to be yours. You could have had him. And we gave him up in the Aroldis Chapman deal, which to me, I'm okay with it because it got me a World Series. Well, it got the Cubs a World Series. I'm a fan of that team. I didn't get the ring, but it got me a World Series. But in the end, you looked, we just gave the Yankees a bunch of players to rent Chapman for the rest of that year, and he went right back to New York when they paid him the big bucks. I don't want that to happen again. I don't want to have to give up a bunch of prospects to get Manny Machado to try to make a postseason run, and then, you know what, we don't get it. It seems like the Cubs this year, the biggest problem to me for the Cubs is going to be the regular season, and it's going to be getting through the division. If the Cubs can get through the divisional race and make the playoffs, I don't know about you. This is a topic for another day on the Outcast, but I think the Cubs can get to the World Series again. With the injuries in LA, with the Nationals and what they've been dealing with their struggles, I'm sorry, the Braves don't scare me. The Rockies don't scare me. The Diamondbacks, if they weren't struggling as of late, would probably scare me, but, they don't. In general, really to me, get through this Central, and you can get to the World Series this year. So, Manny Machado would help with that, but I'm not going to trade for Manny Machado if I'm not guaranteed that he's going to be signing long term.
I guess I just think that there's not much sense to be made in a deal for Manny Machado with the Chicago Cubs because of the fact that he's most likely only going to be a rental for this year. That's it. And if you can't, and now it's all depending, and because in my mind, for the Baltimore Orioles to make this deal happen, they're going to be asking for the moon. They should. They're going to be asking for probably at least one major league ready player and multiple prospects. But like you said, if it comes down to if it was just Russell and it was just Little, that's a deal that I would probably, if I'm the Cubs, after everything I've said, I would probably pull the trigger on that because that's not as much as I would believe, and I would feel like the Cubs would absolutely be winning that deal.
Well, and for me, the next team, the first team I was going to bring up that should be on the phone, well, not on the phone necessarily, but coming up with starting those trade talks, the Dodgers. I feel like they've got to be looking for an answer for this team because, I mean, you take a big hit. We talked about it with the Corey Seager injury, and to me, it comes down to the Dodgers do almost play a little bit desperate in this, kind of like the Cubs in 2016. You're a team that got to the World Series last year, lost to the Houston Astros last year, and now you're kind of in jeopardy of not even getting back, not even getting to the wild card or winning this division. And I mean, the thing is, the Corey Seager injury, it's important to what position he plays because he's a shortstop. Hey, let's trade for Manny Machado, plug him right in, even if he doesn't sign long term. We've got Corey Seager moving forward, and we kind of almost Chicago Cub this to where we traded a MLB-ready player. Doesn't have to be a huge star, just has to be an MLB-ready player and some minor leaguers to try to get us back in that race so that we can win a World Series or put us in the running for a World Series. Now, Dodger fans might not want to be that. They might be on the same side that I am with the Cubs. Don't give up the farm just to get a rental for the half year, but that's the team that I look at, and I'm like, that's going to be the interesting one in the Manny Machado sweepstakes, because are the Dodgers going to get desperate? Are they going to say, screw it, we need to make something happen, and Manny Machado could help us and fill in at shortstop for the injured Corey Seager?
You know what? When we talked about that last time, the last time that I think I was on,
that was a long
talking
time
about
ago.
it was probably at least a month. I would have said no because the Dodgers weren't doing great, but the injury had just happened to Seager. Everything, seemed okay. This isn't great, but we can pick ourselves out of it. They've really struggled to kind of pick themselves out of it. The pitching still hasn't necessarily been there.
Right now, they're only 4.5 back, which isn't a lot.
They started to finally get going as of late, but I think now that would probably make sense. And because it's the Dodgers, you could probably sign him long term.
And that same article, just for shits and giggles, I'm going to throw out the trade that they have. Probably going to pronounce some of these names wrong, but you can correct me, Brandon. The proposed trade that they have for Manny Machado is outfielder Alex Verdugo, right-hand pitcher Brock Stewart, and then minor league all of them are in the minors, right-hand pitcher Dennis Santana. So 3 minor leaguers for Manny Machado.
I think that that could definitely be something that happens. However,
Santana's the only one in the minors. Stewart and Verdugo, I believe, are in the major leagues. I'm trying to read this article. They have minors and caps, but those are the 3 players that they propose.
Right now, I'm trying to think of he's in the major leagues right now with LA. One of the pitchers. He's one of the young pitchers. Why can't I think of his name?
He a reliever?
No, he's a starter. They have him as a starter right now.
Maeda?
Nope.
Maeda, Ryu?
Nope. Just go through all of them.
I'm looking at ESPN. Kershaw, Wood, Hill, Maeda, and then Ryu are the ones that they have listed, or Ryu.
Gosh, I can't think of his name right now. He's a young guy, kind of a unique name. Anyone in the bullpen there?
You got Fields.
Walker Buehler. Walker Buehler. That guy, they would...
I was like, you got to help me out
I'm
here.
sorry, yeah. No, Walker Buehler, that's the guy that I think that if Baltimore would do a deal, I think that they would really push for him to be part of it. They would really push for him to be part of that deal. I find it would be difficult for the deal to get done without Buehler in there, but we'd have to wait and see.
If I'm the Orioles, I want a gem. I want somebody
you want 3.
Like an Addison Russell is interesting only because then I'm not trying to argue for the Cubs to make this trade, but it's interesting because it's like, all right, he's about the same age as Manny Machado, and he can play at the major league level already. Whereas with the Dodgers, it's like, all right, we're going to get Walker Buehler, but it's like at 23, is he going to be a mainstay in the major leagues, or do we kind of have to work him up into our rotation before he kind of takes over, because hopefully you're hoping then that he takes over for the Orioles. What's another team that you think should or could trade for Manny Machado, or should?
What about Seattle?
That was an interesting one.
What about Seattle right now?
If I would say this, if everything didn't happen to Robinson Cano, I would have done it. But to me, I almost feel like they could do it, because the interesting part about that Cano suspension is he's serving it right now.
Yeah, he is.
Like, he's injured,
Yeah, he is.
serving it. So really it depends on where the injury overlaps with the suspension and how they do. I think they're a deadline team for me. Like, if they're in the hunt as we get closer to the deadline, maybe. But right now, I would not pull that trigger if I'm the Mariners, because it's like, yeah, you're 2.5 out, but this is almost like a Corey Seager type of situation where it's like the injury / suspension to Cano just happened. Let's wait and see how this team does without Cano, and whether they need to make that move to make up for Cano, or get Cano late in the season, make a run, add Manny Machado for that like August, September run to the playoffs.
Absolutely. And this is also one of the interesting things.
Because they're in a tough division.
When we look at a lot of these teams, their infields are fairly crowded.
Yeah.
Like I would have said for like Washington, you just bringing in, just rolling in another one right away. Trey Turner, you're not going to move Trey Turner, obviously.
Yeah.
Third base, Anthony Rendon. He's not off to a great start this year, but you look at the last 2 seasons, he's had like 20. Last year, he had 25 home runs, 100 RBIs. You don't want to move a guy like that just to bring in Manny Machado. I mean, that's what Machado's going to probably give you. So, for some of these, it doesn't necessarily make sense. The Indians, another team that were talked about, but yet again, a crowded infield. I mean, you've got, I'm trying to think of, you got Jose Ramirez, I think, at third. I think you've got Lindor at short. Who are you going to move? And you're not going to make Machado the DH.
No.
So it's one of those things where almost you got to look for a National League team and see if that would work. The Phillies were another name that were out there, but they've got kind of an interesting infield as well. I mean, do you want to take one of those teams that we were just mentioning and expand a little bit on one of those?
The team that I was going to look at in my internet right now is being a little finicky on me, so I can't pull up their exact. There we go. I was going to pull up their depth chart. Was the Indians, because to me, I feel like the Indians ever since 2016, like, I'll be honest, we robbed them. They were probably supposed to win that World Series, and we straight up robbed that World Series from them in the Cubs. And then you had last year, the Astros just made their run, and I mean, Cleveland didn't really have anywhere to be in the World Series. The guy I look at is kind of like a Kipnis, is do you make a trade for Machado? Do you have an infield of, like, I'm talking second base on. Do you have an infield of Kipnis, Lindor, Machado, and have Machado play third? Although, from what I've heard, Machado rather play shortstop than third. But really, if you go with the Buzz method from the Outcasts, is I'll play you wherever I tell you to play, and that's where you'll play because I'm the boss. Or do they go with an infield of Ramirez at third, Lindor at short, Kipnis or Machado at second, or a Machado at short and then a Lindor at second?
That's where, if Machado would be willing to play second base, that's where these teams, a couple of these teams that I was kind of like holding off on because like you kind of sat at second base, that would certainly open up the door for me.
Well, and another thing I want to quickly mention about the Cubs that popped into my head and I wanted to ask you about is the thing that worries me too is what if the Orioles get greedy and go, you know what? We don't want minor leaguers. We want Russell and Schwarber. That's who we want. And to me, I wouldn't want to pull that trigger because I like Kyle Schwarber. But do the Cubs look at it and go, hey, you know what? Like, we can get some, maybe a little bit more, kind of revamp our farm system from the Orioles. And the thing with Schwarber is, yeah, his bat's amazing, but putting him in the field is almost a liability 90% of the time. So, I mean, for me, I would want to keep Schwarber. I like Schwarber, but would the Orioles be like, we want him in the deal because we can put him at the DH?
Yeah, I don't necessarily see the Orioles doing that. They're going to be, after this, this season already.
Because Schwarber's young. It's almost like you're getting a minor league player that can play at the major league level.
This season already for Baltimore, you're in a rebuild. You can tell they're in a rebuild. They're not good. They're at the very bottom of the East, which is way down there. Next year, they're going to continue into the rebuild. That's where they're heading. And I don't necessarily think, you want to have a couple of veterans, which they do have some veterans around there, but they want young guys. They want more young guys. And I know that you say, and before you move on with that question, is I know you say about Schwarber, but I think that'd be really hard and idiotic for the Chicago Cubs if it was. There's no way that your GM is ever going to do that.
There's no way Theo
would never do that.
But that's just a worry that I have, because if I'm the Orioles, I would ask for Kyle Schwarber. And the Cubs, really, we like them, but really putting them in the field's a liability. Here's a team I want to mention. They're a trade deadline team in my mind, basically because of, are they for real right now, or are they just waiting for the team that's in third in their division to wake the hell up? The Atlanta Braves. What if by the trade deadline, Braves are still first in their division? Looks like they could be making maybe a playoff run. Could the Braves be a team by the trade deadline that goes, you know what? This team is young. Probably not going to make a run in the playoffs being so young. We need some veteran on this team. Let's make a trade. Let's go for Manny Machado to be the veteran leader on this team for our playoff push.
That's not a terrible idea. And the Atlanta Braves have actually been playing really well this year.
Exactly.
The team in the East.
But are they playing with house money right now? Is that what it's being? Because no one expected them to be 29-19 by May 23rd of the season.
Yeah, I think that for Atlanta, that is the thing that's lacking with them. They tried the project with Jose Bautista. Didn't work.
Now he's with the Mets.
So they're trying it too.
And the Braves lost today.
And
so
I think that is an interesting thing to bring up, because, like you said, they are a young team. They're very good. They're very talented. I'm trying to think. Their infield, Dansby Swanson is in there at shortstop.
I'll read it off to you 1 second. The depth chart, according to ESPN, has Freeman at first. You have Albies at second, Swanson at shortstop, and then Camargo at third base.
Camargo, you can move that guy.
Would Manny Machado then fit in at third base for you guys? Or not for you guys, but for the Braves? Or would you move over I don't know if you'd move over a Dansby Swanson to third. You'd probably put Machado at third and keep Swanson at shortstop.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. That's where I would put him. That's how I would work it, because then you have yourself
But if you're the Braves, do you make that move if you're first in your division, first or second, by the time we get to trade deadline week?
Well, and then for the Braves too, it's also, and this is right off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone else right now, big name in the Braves farm system, because they're all up playing.
Yeah.
They're all up playing, and that's that's not a bad thing. But then, what chips do you have to necessarily play with then at that point, outside of major league roster talent, and it's no longer in the farm system? So that's kind of another interesting question.
And that's the thing I worry about with the Braves. Will they have enough ammunition to pull that deal? Because to me, the teams with the most ammunition to make a deal done, the Yankees, because they got prospects from us. You've got the Cubs. You've got the Dodgers. Those would be my top three. When it comes to ammunition, being able to have what the Orioles might want to make a deal for Manny Machado. Like anyone else, I feel like is going to be playing a little bit behind the eight ball, because another team that you mentioned early on, kind of in passing, but I don't really think they would make a move for Manny Machado. Maybe I'd be wrong, but also, I don't think the Orioles would make a deal with them or the Yankees, because they're in the same division, and that's the Red Sox. Like, if I'm the Orioles, sorry, Boston, New York, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not sending him to the division. If he's going to New York, he'll have to do that in the offseason, if he so chooses.
Could you imagine Machado joins a lineup with Mookie Betts and JD Martinez?
Yet again, I'd have to put him at third.
But you couldn't do it because you're taking away at bats from Devers.
Yeah, well,
that's the problem.
That's
and
what
you want to get that young guy.
I'll be honest though, if I'm putting Machado in, I'm having an infield of Ramirez at first, Nunez at second, Bogarts at short, Machado at third base. Like, he loses out. Like, Devers loses out. I'm sorry, but Manny Machado beats you. Because I'm not putting Bogarts on the bench.
No.
I'm not putting Nunez on the bench. I'm putting Devers on the bench for Manny Machado.
Nunez. Eduardo Nunez. Yeah. I was just trying to remember that. But yeah. Yeah,
I mean, he is 30, but I mean...
Devers would probably be the odd man out in that one, but where at least at bats would certainly be taken away from him. I mean, and sometimes you almost think, okay, do these teams have enough money to do it? But they do.
They do.
They do. It's Boston. They do.
I'll ask you this kind of at the very end. I don't know
but really quickly, me as a joke, do the Yankees try and bring him over and say, we'll just find somewhere for you. We'll just find somewhere for you.
No. If the Yankees get it and the camera shuts off, so you're looking at the MVP logo right now, if the Yankees get him, it's because he signed in free agency. Here's the question I want to ask.
Okay.
Is there a chance that he doesn't get traded at the trade deadline?
There's always a chance, no, I think he's getting traded.
And do you think there's a possibility that even if he does get traded, he hits off-season next year, and if he hits off-season, who's your front runner? If, let's say, the team that traded for him, or if the Orioles can't lock him down full time, who does he go to in free agency if he hits the open market?
So this is a feeling. This is a feeling, is that I think he will be traded. I think he's going to a National League team. And I feel like it could be somewhere in the National League East.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were going to say the Cubs, and I thought I was going to be like, no, Brandon, don't do that.
No, I think it would be in the National League East. And then I think that he would not stay there. They wouldn't be able to re-sign him. And then the front runner for Manny Machado at the beginning of next year, that's a tough one.
I'm saying the Yankees. If he hits free agency, Yankees are throwing the pocketbook at him and they're going to get him. And then they're going to become World Series favorites if they haven't won it already.
Do you want me to give you my crazy one and then my one that's a little...
Tinfoil hat it, Brandon.
My crazy one, and it's been spoken of before, my crazy one it's the Chicago White Sox. The crazy one is the Chicago White Sox because we're still... I mean, for us to knock around the idea of trying to go after Manny Machado in this past offseason when we knew... Well, I don't think we knew we were going to be like 11 wins into like 40 games of the season, bad, but... But to know that we were not going to be good, not going to be competitive, and you're thinking about trying to trade for Machado in this past offseason, the White Sox could use him. The White Sox totally need him at third base. You have Davidson as your full-time designated hitter. You've got Machado at third, Anderson at short, Moncada at second, and then hopefully Abreu at first. Hopefully they don't trade him. But, I mean, that'd be a killer infield. But you'd obviously have to give some stuff up, and the White Sox have the stuff to do it, but would they pull the trigger? And then realistically, for some reason, I feel like it'd be the Cubs.
If I'm the White...
and that would be my realistic one. My realistic one would be the Cubs.
If I am the White Sox, I do not trade for Manny Machado. And the reason being is I don't feel like he would re-sign. I don't feel like it because... I feel like Manny Machado wants to go to a contender, like in LA.
No. I'm not talking about the White. I'm talking about free agency White Sox. That they'd be the front runner for free agency next year.
See, I don't know.
And here's the thing, though: the Yankees.
You'd have to sell them on a lot about the future.
Chicago. Who doesn't want to be in Chicago? You can go to the North Side on the days off to watch them win. No, I'm kidding, but. No, but you could sell him on the future because the future, as everyone seems to continue to tell me when I'm getting upset about another shitty pitch game by one of our assholes, is
like James Shields.
He's been a lot better.
Okay,
but it's
like big game Shields.
It's like, Brandon, it'll be okay. The future will better be freaking bright.
I am gonna tell you what I have heard Juice say as I point to the camera, who's no longer on. I have heard Juice say this to Brad, because Brad's almost in the same boat as you, it seems. Like, just upset with this team and wants to win. I agree with Juice on the Outcast, where it's like, I look at you guys and I go, I remember being there. I remember being exactly like that. Theo's in town. I'm expecting to win already. We're not really winning. What the hell's going on? And then I won a World Series. So all I can say is be patient, buddy.
No, but here's I know, and I get it. But the whole thing is it's
I mean,
like,
come on, you called it when Theo came on. We did college radio back in the day. You said 5 years, and that fifth year he won the World Series.
I know. It takes a lot to be that smart. But
or that lucky.
Yeah, that's what it is. Dumb luck. But in realistically, I do think that it'll be the Cubs that will be the front runner for it next year.
In trade or free agency?
In free agency. Okay. And for some reason, I feel, because for some reason, whether it's Manny Machado or not getting traded with them, I think Addison Russell is not staying.
No,
Addison Russell is not staying in town.
Well, and here's the thing I want to quickly bring up about Addison Russell, and this will kind of end the whole thing, is... Do you think, and I know that this might be a little bit of a stretch, do you think he might be the one that's at the front of these trade rumors because of the domestic violence thing that happened with him last year?
Not necessarily. I don't think so.
Not necessarily oh my God, but it's like, hey, you know what? Let's distance ourselves from that.
But I think that...
like, it made him the expendable one.
I think that with Addison Russell, I think that he's come along a little bit slower than they'd like him to. There's a lot of potential, but they're wondering, where is it? And he's also a guy he's
obviously you're not going to move Chris from third. Like, he's locked. Or Chris Bryant.
Or just put him in right.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's one of those where Addison Russell is a guy that they believe is good. And other teams would believe he's really good, could believe he's really good, or would also still believe he's good. But I think the Cubs could see that they could get something really, really good, like gem. And I think they'd be willing to do that because, like I said, if Manny Machado doesn't go to the Cubs this year, maybe the Cubs do something else where Addison Russell's part of a package, and then you have your shortstop position open for the rest of the year into the offseason, and you go, Manny, we've got an opening.
Well, this is where we're going to end it. I want to ask you guys, what do you think? Which team should trade for Manny Machado? Also, if you're at this point, you're a Cub and a White Sox fan, as we kind of mentioned them a lot in this, make sure to check out the Outcasts. They do a great job each and every week talking about all Chicago sports, Bulls, Bears, Cubs, and Sox. You can check them out on the channel or go to Twitter and you'll get everything as Sean puts them up as they get posted. Want to thank you guys for checking this out. Little housekeeping here at the end. If you want to help support us, check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. Our store link is down below in the description, mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can get MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, Apple Podcast and iTunes to give the MVP podcast a 5-star rating. I want to thank you guys for watching on YouTube right now. You're looking at the logo. And thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. But as always, have a good day, everybody.